Let's see. So for all practical purposes, as they state in the book, it's considered a 5-1 progression. Whatever. Let's see. If we move along, page 218, we'll also see chords moving in descending thirds. All right? So, and of course, that also counts as ascending sixths if necessary, because it just offsets it by an octave. But chord roots that lie in a relationship of descending thirds serve as a definite function in that they provide contrast and also, like the ascending seconds, facilitate change from one circle progression to another. So basically what they're saying is that it does the same thing as ascending seconds. That's all. That's literally all it is. And they took a whole paragraph to do it and showed an example. Yeah. They say that the tonic 6-4 triad, for whatever reason, so the second inversion triad is 6-4, 1-6-4, especially if it's used in a cadence 1-6-4-5-1, reflects little of the stable quality normally associated with the tonic function and should be considered a decoration of the 5 chord that follows it. So it's just sort of like an add-on to 5. So you can see actually here, when it does legitimately show up in a piece of music, right, we've got, they put it in parentheses because they don't consider it part of the chord progression, right? So you just discount it, pretend it doesn't exist. Put in parentheses, put it in a little box, and lock it away. So yeah, also, one other thing to note, in instances where the same triad is repeated or recurs in a different position, no progression takes place. So it's basically, there's no chord progression, you just don't acknowledge it. It's just kind of like all part of the same thing, even if it's in a different inversion. All right, so the chord progression officially starts on the next one chord or the next 2 chord or whatever it is. All right, or if it's in the middle, you just kind of like lump it in with the other one, call it a sustained chord or something. Let's see. So another thing, and we talked all about this back in the first semester. I remember doing tons of exercises on it already, which is harmonic rhythm and identifying that. Let me find out where it was. I don't remember where it ended up, but I know you guys did it. Okay, anyway, let me cut that part out. All right, well, I know you guys did it way back in last semester where you had to basically map out how fast the chord progressions were moving, right? So in this case, this is called harmonic rhythm. The book defines it as the frequency of harmonic changes in a composition. So or at the rate at which chord progressions or the chords themselves change. So as you can see here, all right, just I don't want to write this all out on the board because I think it's pretty easy to get. So figure 10.10, right? We're in 2/4. You can see we've got one chord per measure, right? So you're taking all those chords, putting them together. It's really only one chord, right? All of these are part of a, what is that? A 1 chord, right? All of these are part of a 5/7 chord. So the harmonic rhythm is, right, dotted half note. So the harmonic rhythm moves at basically 3/4 notes per measure, right? Or 3 beats per measure. And that's basically it. 10.11 gives you another example. It's like super straightforward. Figure 10.12 is actually kind of neat. It gives you standard blues progressions. So if you ever need to come up with a quick blues chart, boom, right there. They're all there. I'll play some of them for you. So blues moves in pretty standard forms. You can see it really only uses 3 chords, like of most rock music as well. So it's using 1, it's using 4, and 5. And it's using the blues scale, so we add a B flat. So we've got right, so you've got dominant 7, another dominant 7, and then it just moves up to a 4 chord. So 2 chords of the 4, and then back to the 1, and then up. So, oh, sorry. And then back to 1. So basically it's using those 4 chords in various combinations. Excuse my horrible, horrible piano playing. And then you can see in 10.3 how Sweet Home Chicago, if you follow the blues progression in blues progression A, Sweet Home Chicago, all of these notes come from that chord progression, right? So this whole measure, tonic, right? It's part of that F is part of the tonic chord, right? Because we're in F major. So that's the tonic. And then it moves along. So you could play this melody and then throw this progression right under it, and you've got yourself a blues song. All right, so today our second half of the lecture is going to involve how to harmonize a tonal melody. And we have 2 different kinds of melody that we're going to deal with. We have chorales or hymn tunes. So think about the, going to church and opening up the hymnal, and you see those sort of four-part, songs that everybody sings. Those are hymns. This is what we're going to learn to harmonize. The other kind of melody we're going to learn to harmonize are folk songs. So there are 6 rules that you want to use when harmonizing the melody. So this, assumes that you already have a melody mapped out, and now you've got to figure out how to add the rest of it, right? So say you're a songwriter, you have this melody that you've been spinning around in your head for a while, you write it down, you're like, all right, how do I make this into an actual song? This is how you do it. So a couple rules you want to look at least if it's a hymn. Use half or authentic cadences on the last 2 notes of each phrase. All right, so that means that the last 2 notes of each phrase is going to end in a half or a perfect authentic cadence. Actually, it could be an imperfect authentic cadence as well, as long as it's an authentic cadence. So yeah, they're all pretty easy. Number 2, you want to use circle progressions throughout in each phrase. So use as many circle progressions as possible. At the beginning of the phrase, you can use fewer circle progressions. You can jump around a little more. But at the end, you want to sort of drive it home, and the best way to do that is circle progression. So at the end of every phrase, you want to end it with a circle progression. 5-1, 1-5, one of those. All right. Number 3, harmonize each melody note with 1 chord. So each note in the melody, if you're thinking about a Bach chorale, outside of non-harmonic tones, so that doesn't include things like passing tones, neighboring tones, stuff like that. So every main note is going to have a chord associated with it. So it is possible to repeat chords occasionally, but adjacent repeated chords are usually in different positions to provide melodic motion in the bass. So if you have 2, D major chords, and they're 1 chord, you're going to have one maybe set as a root position chord, and the other D major in first inversion, just so that the bass isn't singing D the whole time. So that's the idea. Number 4, you want to employ first inversion chords and non-harmonic tones to make a smooth bass melody. So you want to make it stepwise. And this leads us right into 5, which is shape the bass line to make it singable. It's got to be singable. You can't just be jumping, all over the place. So no, nobody can sing that. So make sure, and this goes with anything you write. Can you sing it? Can somebody sing it? If not, it's probably not going to be performed very well, and then it's not going to sound very good. Let's see. Also, last but not least, and they also suggest with number 5 that it's singable. Use the principles of species counterpoint as a guide to constructing bass melodies. So chapter 8 does come in handy. However, remember that the bass usually has more leaps than the other voices. So it is okay for the bass to have some leaps. It's totally fine. They're used to it. You just don't want to have it all over the place, and you want to give them some stepwise motion. And then in 6, last but not least, avoid the overuse of ascending thirds and descending second progressions. So yeah, you want to try to stick with the 4ths and 5ths, ascending and descending in circles. Yeah, and you'll see actually as an example here with the bass line, you can see they're using, first inversion. They're using non-harmonic tones to make it a little bit more stepwise, because the bass is the one that, because it's sort of really planted in the root position chord most of the time, that's the one that kind of has to jump around the most. And yeah, so I'll let you read page 223 talking about what they see in the different versions of the Bach chorales and what you learn. And let's move on to the 2 rules for harmonizing a folk tune, and they call it familiar melodies, all right? So it says many suggestions for harmonizing a chorale melody also apply to folk and familiar melodies. The most important difference, as stated before, is the harmonic rhythm. The following suggestions for harmonizing a well-known melody are in addition to those given for chorale melodies and are related primarily to harmonic rhythm. So this is going to so basically when you're dealing with folk melodies, all these rules apply. We're trying to make them apply. And then on top of that, in a folk melody, the harmonic rhythm is important in establishing a clear meter. For this reason, chords usually change on the first beat of a measure. So chords change on the first beat of the measure. All right, so that's number 1. Oftentimes,